That was really good. I'm trying to think what you would have to do now to mess this up.
Hello everyone!
Hello.
How are we all?
Welcome back to
Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, this week it is going to be Jack reading out. I know I did. Jack actually did the last one, didn't you?
Yes, The Witchy Jar. Hope you all enjoyed it.
Go and check that out. But Jack has just been bursting with creativity, and he's got not one but two stories in a row. We're going to do sort of like.
Well, it's a double part, so we're going to be experiencing it all in one, but you guys are going to be experiencing it over Thursday and Sunday. Mm-hmm. So it's an extra long. I'm very excited about this story.
Me too.
It's going to be, if I'm going to, preface this entire video, This is my favourite story that I've ever written for this show.
Favourite? Mm-hmm. Hold a dear place in your heart?
Yes.
Oh. That means it's going to be good, I think.
We'll see.
If you like it, then that's a good.
I had a lot of fun writing it, so. And also, just to say, we've learned from our mistake of last week.
Yeah.
I've chopped the sleeves off my shirts. Got a cap on.
Yeah.
Is that different?
I don't know.
I don't know.
It's not.
It's not as hot.
It's not very bright in here. It's just our garage is like a sauna. We film this in the garage. There's no hiding it anymore.
Oh come on! It's not a garage. It's a forest.
That's what I call a forest. I call it a garage.
Garage forest.
Yeah.
Garage for our North American viewers.
Garage.
Garage for everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shall we? Shall we? So we get on with the story. Huh?
Let's get on.
What is the title of this two-parter extravaganza?
Okay. Well, as you can imagine, there's a part one and part two. But that's just a terrible joke. That didn't go down very well, did it? Anyway, the title to this week's story is The Cracks in Between.
I love it. I like it. Let's do it.
Let's begin.
A cold, consuming glow creeps into your bedroom, and as the unsettling light stirs you from your sleep, you hear that sound again. It's the third time this week, more frequent than the last, and as you roll onto your side and slip your head deeper beneath the blankets, a single tear pooling at the corner of your eye, the same high-pitched shrill of the wind rattles in the glass pane. And then you hear it, just like before. At first, just a trickle of a noise, a sound not quite within your earshot, like the slow movements of water against the walls of an ancient cave. You know it's there, but you can't quite place it. You can't quite put your finger on where it's coming from this time, but the trickle gets louder. Soon it is a dripping tap, and as you lunge forward in your bed, casting the sheets of linen aside, you clamber for the gas lamp on the dresser in the corner. Your fingers ache in the sudden cold, but you manage to twist the copper mechanism, and the warm, familiar smell of peat fills the room, and then the comfort of light that comes with it. Step after step, the floorboards creak in unison as you make your way toward the window pane. The cobbles outside are quiet. At the end of the street, you can make out the hanging lamp gently swaying in its bracket. No light though, just the grim silhouette of where light should be. Gerard, the lamplighter, had been found dead 2 nights before, and there were few folk left to take up his rounds. He was one of the first to be found the next morning, his lips blue and cold, dead in his bed, his pale skin soaked and sodden. You remember his gaze, and you remember the same blank stare of the others that followed. Just then, the dripping gets louder, one mighty thunk, as if a brass pipe had pulled and spilled over, or a pail of water beneath a leak had reached its limit. And then it stops. Just like before, the incessant dripping sound ceases to be, and as you peer your nose against the window pane, hoping, praying to see someone, anyone, anything, any figure in the shadows slinking between the rows of houses that line the village, to give you something to go on, a scrap of hope. Nothing. Just like before, and just like all the evenings that had followed since. Silence in the dark, quiet blanket of the night. No footsteps to lead you in the right direction, to put an end to this madness. You switch off the lamp and climb back into bed, bundling in the linen at the lingering cold. You try to sleep, but can't. You know what awaits you in the morning. At first light, you hear a knock at your door and you question for a moment whether you'd fallen asleep, if only briefly. You rub the sleep from your eyes and call out, asking who it is. "For Christ's sake, open up! It's Eric," says the voice. "It's worse than yesterday." You dress and you unlatch the intricate series of locks on your door, finally sliding out the chain with a clunk. Eric steps inside, a large man with broad features, heavy-set shoulders, hands that are coarse from labour, and kind, pale blue eyes. He's sweating and he holds his cap scrunched at his waist. You're thankful to see him. You bow your head and you ask him how many. 12, he says. "Maybe more. The Broadleys out by the mill, they aren't answering. They've got more locks on the door than you and they've boarded the windows. That's 3 more over there. 5 if you count the little ones." There's a panic in his voice, and as Eric paces back and forth, creaking the floorboards in a desperate cacophony, you place a hand on his shoulder and you tell him to calm down. You tell him that he's safe in daylight. You tell him that it only comes at night. And you tell him that today there are things to be done. Eric sighs and shakes his head, deflated and defeated. He smooths his hands across his forehead. "We have to leave," he says. "We should have left as soon as this all started. We'll pack up a wagon. We can find food on the way. We can live off the land like the natives. We can forage it. Pemmican. I heard them talk about it last spring. They showed me how to make it. It'll work. It'll work. I'm sure of it." You know the answer to that though. And after a moment of brief silence, Eric knows it too. The harvest was meagre and the lake had stopped yielding when this all began. The last of the pigs had already been slaughtered and the natives, they won't come close to the village to trade. "We could leave," you tell him, "but we'll die on the road." "Aye," he says in a sharp, desperate breath, "but better on the road than a throat full of water." You put on your boots and the two of you leave the room in silence. The village is quiet as still, save for the distant sound of sobbing. As you glance at the rows of windows, you see bundled bodies inside. The wraps of linen seep through and damp with water. The ones that have survived the night now mourn for the dead as they mourn for themselves the next morning. You and Eric make it to the edge of the village without saying a single word, and in the distance you see the mill by the river and the Broadley family's home beside it. Strangely enough, the water wheel is jammed with a large wooden stake and the windows are boarded up, nailed shut from the inside. Eric pounds his fist against the door. "John!" he calls out. "John, are you in there? It's morning, John!" He turns to glance at you, biting his lip in a desperate curse. He shakes his head and he takes a step backwards. "If you're in there, if anyone is, just move aside." "We'll have to kick it down," says Eric. "We have to know. For their sake. John's been here longer than all of us." Eric squares his shoulders. He takes a running charge and with a swift stomp of his boot, he splinters the brackets of the doorframe. It hangs still, defiant, as the chains that bar the way clatter against themselves. Eric takes another step and he stomps the boards again, but this time the door heaves to the side, and behind it you see only darkness. Eric steps forward and yanks the bolts from the chains, and the wooden door clatters awkwardly to the floor. The two of you step inside, and Eric curses under his breath. 3 bodies lay slumped at the table, a burnt-out gas lamp in the centre. The smell of spent peat gas lingers pungently in the air before you twiddle the mechanism and the last hiss of the lamp stops. You place your hand on the slumped body before you, and as you lift their head, a pool of water spills from their open mouth, splattering on the table. The other 2 are the same, their clothes sodden, their skin wet to the touch. "I knew it," says Eric. "I knew it long before I kicked that door down. Poor John, and Annie, and Tom. But hold on, Christ, where are the children? Where's Martha? Where's little Peter?" Eric stamps his way across the floorboards out through the single room to the back of the house. You hear him clatter up the stairs, the rafters shaking dust above you, and as you turn to follow him, you hear him cry out, "Christ! Up here! Quick!" You panic as you clamber up the stairs, and as you pass the threshold, you see Eric crouched on the floor, his outline bordered by the glow of the morning as it streaks through the cracks in the woodwork. As you step forward, you see his hands resting on the shoulders of two small children, a girl and a boy, their faces soaked in tears. "It's okay," whispers Eric. "It's okay. It's morning. It can't hurt us in the daylight. Come now, little ones. Come. Let's get you out of here." Eric turns to you, a brief glimpse of sorrow on his face. His lip quivers for an instant as he creases his brow and moves to bundle them in his arms. Peter, the younger of the two, shakes his head. A shower of tears falls to the floor. He moves to speak, but he can't. The girl, she looks at you, her eyes wide in terror, frozen in place, pleading for something, someone. And then you hear the soft shamble of boots against the floor and the abrupt creak of a chair sliding against wood beneath you. And then another, and another. The boy sobs, weeping as he covers his mouth with his hands. Eric turns to you, but you cannot bring yourself to meet his gaze. "They're not dead," whispers the girl.
That was a very strong start, Mr. Finch. A very strong start.
Thanks.
That was really good. I'm trying to think what you would have to do now to mess this up. I don't know. Like if it turns out that, I don't know, it was all a dream.
It was all a dream.
It was, I don't know, so they've just been drinking too much water or something like that.
They're all like mildly overhydrated.
I'm just trying to think what you're gonna do now.
What do you think? Because this is interesting. Because this is why I really enjoy two-parters as well. Because there's like a nice little bridge in between. Obviously, I know the words are already written, the ink is already dry, right? I know where it goes, but I really enjoy.
You want to guess?
Oh, well, I enjoy gauging. Like it's like a checkpoint, right, in an RPG. Like,
Yeah, okay, I like that.
I kind of enjoy gauging like what you picked up on, what perhaps you didn't pick up on, what you, I don't know.
Well, I'm guessing it's set in colonial times.
Yes.
Just from the fact that the natives were mentioned.
Yes.
But before that, I was picturing it sort of in old Europe or something.
Yeah.
With the lamps and.
Well, I kind of wanted to take the essence of the Balkan that you let out so vividly and beautifully, and kind of transplant that very kind of ancient feel that you put in the Balkan, but put it in a setting where a lot of our stories happen.
America,
which is America.
Yeah,
America.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Yeah, it gave me real vibes of The Witch, the movie.
Well, it's interesting you should also say that, because that was my other inspiration.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys seen The Witch, but we always talk about it as just an amazing horror film.
One of the finest horror films of recent times.
Before anything typically scary happens, just the isolation is terrifying, and the fact that a road that is always seen as an opportunity to escape and get away is just a death trap, basically. It's terrifying. Just like even something as civilized as a road. Roads are meant to connect people, but you'll die on that road.
What have the Romans ever done for us?
What have the Romans ever done for us? That in itself set the tone really well. The fact that they're alone, separate from the natives as well, and just it felt a bit like the start of The Walking Dead, but set in like colonial era. You know what I mean?
That's also very interesting that you should say that. This is fun. This is really fun.
See, you asked me to guess.
This is really fun.
Like 3 for 3 right now. Go on.
You're doing very well.
Yeah, it's a trope that's done quite a lot in modern zombie films. The roundup, the one person knocking another person, going to the other person's house, even to the point where like parody films like Shaun of the Dead play on that so hard, like going around rounding everyone up. But it's not something you see in this era,
Right.
It's or maybe I haven't watched or read enough, but I've never really seen that sort of.
It's a very interesting point, but I feel like I want to finish the story before I elaborate on that point, because that's a very good point. That's very interesting. Yeah. You're doing very well.
Yeah. No, I'm really excited, and also moving away from the themes for a second. Second person writing.
Right.
Very special.
Well, I mentioned this, you and I were having a conversation a few days ago.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that I've tried to do it a little bit before, and I forget what the story is that I did it in, but it was at the end. And I switched it. Oh, sorry, it was Mr. Benjamin's bunker. I switched right at the end of that story. I switched to second person.
Oh yeah.
But obviously wasn't that great. But
It's classic. That's a classic.
that's a classic.
Come on.
What do you think, guys? Is it a classic? But I just love that. I mean, you and I are both fans of role-playing games, and like, I was a fan of the big kind of like choose-your-own-adventure books back in the day and stuff, like The Rings of Saturn. Just sitting down and going through your own adventure. And I feel like second-person perspective has such a good gateway for that.
Yes, it really does.
It's so immediate.
What I really like about it is, for me, it takes away the one thing that I have protecting myself when watching a horror movie, which is for me to say, don't go in that house, you idiot. Whether or not it's in first or third person, don't whether it's someone recounting a memory or whatever. But you've taken that away from me by doing a second person. You're forcing me into that situation. I don't want to go in there, but I am. Like, I physically am being pulled along the narrative, and you're taking away the one defense that people have when they're viewing horror, which is to remove themselves and say, well, that's not me, that's someone else, and they're an idiot or whatever.
And that's really fun, and also that's why I tried to make everything else so descriptive, but the actual so nondescript. So I wanted this to be like genderless, kind of like everything, like no idea. You could be watching this from the eyes of a man, a woman, a dog, a bear, and you
hang about.
And
Is that why you gone sleeveless today? Let's see.
Just a little clue. Just a slight little clue, yeah. But yeah, it's kind of, like you say, it takes away that defense. And if you make it so nondescript, that's why Harry Potter was so successful, because millions of children put themselves in the nondescript eyes of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of.
Kid's got a scar and glasses. That's all we know about him.
Exactly.
You put a scar and glasses on your head, you're done. You're Harry Potter.
Yeah. And I also like that Eric is there too to pull it along, because it's very easy to say, like, well, I wouldn't do that, well, I wouldn't do this, but if you've got one guy smashing a door and running upstairs, calling you over like an NPC would in like an RPG game, then you are being pulled along. You have to complete the quest, you have to go and get that reward or whatever it is. So.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. I've just had an idea about how I think it's going to end.
Oh,
possibly. Okay. I don't want to say anything. I think that's a good point to end it, actually.
That's a great point to end.
Hopefully a lot of you guys are now.
Because we're about to film that right now.
Yes, we are. So I'm going to find out right now. You guys are going to find out on Sunday. So sucks to be you guys. Sorry, but tune in on Sunday. All right. Thanks for watching, guys.
Thank you so much. Part 2 will be out on Sunday.
Yeah.
And also, guys, you would have seen the community post by now. We've had to delay our live stream until next Friday, but come on, good things happen to those that wait. Right?
It's going to be a good one.
It's going to be a good one. We got some great entries, and we're going to go whole hog onto it. Things happen. Things are delayed. Sorry. Enjoy this story.
All right, guys.
On that note, there's no fire to blow out because it's covered in water.
Oh, are we keeping the fire going?
It's burning.
Okay, let's keep the fire going for this one, I guess. Because
this is the first time the fire's been burning eternally.
Let's leave it on. Hopefully you guys can come back on Sunday and help us put it out. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, take care.